Knowledge ISN, T, a treasure chest, Socrates would say. It is a maze of questions you haven, T, dare to trace. Today, we take a road less traveled through a city of ideas, and we carry 5 life lessons Socrates would stamp with his simple, stubborn truth. The question matters more than the answer, and a better life begins with a braver mind. If you're a thinker who feels the pull of deeper living, this is your map. First, the context you'll want to hear. In a world that treats certainty like a trophy, Socrates shows up as a tutor of doubt. Not doubt as paralysis, but doubt as propulsion. Not cynicism, but method. His entire project was not to hoard truths, but to strip away what isn't true. So what remains can guide action. That is a rare tool in a culture hungry for slogans. It is a discipline you can practice in the quiet hours with no audience. And it changes what you do when no one is watching. Lesson 1. Question relentlessly, but with care. Socrates didn't rush to conclusions. He walked into rooms with others and asked questions that unsettled both sides. The aim wasn't to win a debate, but to illuminate what was still shadowed. In your life, practice the same approach, not to dismantle people, but to dismantle your own assumptions. Start with the easiest belief, the one you're most confident about, and ask, what would have to be true for this to be false? What is the hidden premise I'm not naming? This isn't about growing doubt for its own sake. It's about growing accuracy for a life you want to live. The practical method matters. Ask short, precise questions. If you're sure your neighbor is selfish, ask, is there evidence of selfishness or of fear? How does this belief affect my own choices? The moment you invite inquiry, you invite growth, even if the dialogue is uncomfortable. This is the wind that clears the dust from old rooms and shows you where the beams actually hold. Lesson 2. Live the examined life. The phrase sounds grand, but it just means you spend as much time evaluating your own soul as you evaluate your plans. What do you value when the lights go out and there is no applause? If your daily actions were watched by a future version of yourself, would the living room of your life look coherent or cluttered with contradictions? In practice, the examined life isn't about diagnosing every fault. It's about aligning your energy with your deepest commitments. If you claim courage as your virtue, are your choices at work and at home reflecting courage when it costs you something? If you value honesty, do you tell the truth when it's inconvenient or costly? The goal isn't perfection, it's coherence. The harder your life tracks with your values, the more truth you secure inside you, and truth is energy. It powers resilience when a world grows loud and confusing. Lesson 3. Virtue may be the only genuine good. In Socrates' view, external possessions and social status are not what make life good. Virtue does. This is not a romantic claim. It's a practical claim with consequences. If wealth slips away, virtue remains. If the crowd shifts its opinion, virtue remains steady. The paradox is that striving for virtue can feel costly humility, self-control. Justice, yet the payoff is clarity, steadiness. In a sense that you are acting in a form of alignment that respects your own soul. Imagine a banking system for character. Every act deposits or drains virtue. The daily choices, how you speak to a partner, how you treat a colleague, how you handle envy or pride, either accumulate credit or run a deficit. Socrates wasn't promising a smooth ride. He promised a life that could bear inspection. A life that doesn't collapse when the storm arrives because it rests on a secure bedrock. Virtue as knowledge and practice, not mere belief. Lesson 4. Humility as a strength, not a flaw. I know that I know nothing, he has said to have declared. The exact words aren't a boast, but a posture, a refusal to pretend mastery over existence. Humility is not resignation. It's a refusal to confuse certainty with virtue. If you mistake confidence for clarity, the wiser path is to test your knowledge against reality, to seek disagreement as a form of calibration. and to welcome correction as a form of care. Humility also opens you to help. When you acknowledge gaps, you invite mentors, peers, and even critics to push you toward better ideas. That openness is not weakness. It's a strategic stance. It preserves your energy for right action rather than endless posturing. It turns conversations from battlegrounds into laboratories where results can be measured, and where the deepest insights often emerge from the most honest questions. Lesson 5. Dialogue over dogma. Socrates preferred conversation to proclamation. When two minds meet with curiosity, the space between them becomes fertile ground for revision. Dogma, by contrast, freezes thinking into a statue beautiful to behold, but brittle when weather shifts. In your life, cultivate the habit of listening as a form of leadership. When a friend or colleague disagrees, resist the urge to convert them to your. Instead, ask, what can I learn from your view? Which part of this belief survives your critique? The aim is not to win arguments, but to refine ideas large enough to guide action across the whole of life. Dialogue is the engine of practical wisdom because it brings counter-arguments into the light, where they can be weighed, tested, and integrated. Now comes the turning point, the moment Socrates invites us to see a different kind of answer. If virtue is the good and questions are the means, perhaps the most radical act in a noisy world is not to shout louder, but to listen. The paradox is simple. The more you insist you know, the less you actually know. The more you admit you don't know, the more you can learn what matters most. This shift changes how you act at work, at home, and in the moment of decision under pressure. It isn't a license to drift. It's a discipline to choose well amid uncertainty. It's the difference between clinging to formulas and stepping into reality with tools that work when the variables shift. Integrity, curiosity, patience, courage. Those are not speculative virtues. They're the instruments by which you craft a coherent life, one that endures when the noise grows loud. So what can you do this week to practice Socratic wisdom without turning your life into a classroom? Start by drafting a small ritual of inquiry. Pick one belief that shapes your choices, perhaps how you define success, or how you treat people who disappoint you. Write down 3 questions that test that belief without blaming anyone. Then, seek one conversation where you expose your thinking to a trusted listener and invite critique. Let the exchange be slow, respectful, and honest. Notice what files into your system after the dialogue, what pops up as useful, and what falls away. The 5th lesson doesn't invite you to abandon certainty. It invites you to abandon certainty's pretensions. The real work is to act with clarity, even when you cannot promise you have the final truth. In that space, character becomes your compass. The resolution is quiet but powerful. Socratic life isn't about collecting correct answers. It's about cultivating a mind that can govern itself when the weather of life turns unpredictable. It's about turning every day into a workshop where thoughts are tested. Values are defended not by posturing, but by lived choices. And the self is built deliberately with intention over time. And the final question you can carry forward is not, what do I know? But what shall I do with what I know? If you can answer that with honesty, you've already begun to live the examined life in a world that rarely pauses to examine anything at all. If you're listening with a restless curiosity, you'll feel the pull toward a different rhythm, one where doubt isn't a hole to fall into, but a door to walk through. Socrates didn't promise certainty. He offered a path that makes certainty more usable, more humane, and less brittle. He offered a way to turn thinking into living, and living into a steadier boldness. So, as you step back into your day, carry this practice, question with care, live with intent, cultivate virtue, welcome humility, and choose dialogue over dogma. The aim isn't to reach final answers, but to inhabit better questions. Questions strong enough to guide your actions when the evening comes and you look in the mirror and wonder, am I still learning to be the kind of person I want to be? If Socrates were here, He'd probably smile at your willingness to keep questioning. And he would remind you that the only life worth living is the life that remains open to correction. Because that is the